2.
Welcome everyone to my channel. This is Christi Fraga, and today I have two very special guests who we are going to talk about something that's been affecting Doral for a very long time, an issue that I know many residents have brought as a concern to me in the past, and really something that I'm learning about as I continue down this path of serving our community in Doral. So today with me I have Miguel Martinez and I have Rudy Blanco. Miguel has a background in architecture. He's an architect and an entrepreneur, and Rudy is an attorney. And these two gentlemen have been working closely with Miami Lakes and other municipalities in the West Dade area regarding the blasting that happens that we all feel and have effect. So this is our first introduction to this issue, which I know many of our residents feel every single day on a constant basis. Many of you have brought these concerns to me and have said, what does this do for our structures? What is the long-term impact of what this will create for our community? I know many of you have actually already experienced cracking in your driveways and in the communities. And so I think this is something that unfortunately Doral has not prioritized in the past, and something that I would like to prioritize moving forward as your next mayor here in the city of Doral. So I've invited both these gentlemen to be here with me today, who have tremendous background and experience in this issue, which they've been dealing with Miami Lakes and other municipalities. I'm going to give each of them an opportunity to speak a little bit, and this will be the first of many opportunities that we will have to speak about this issue, and hopefully we'll have a town hall meeting at some point where many of you can join us to ask your questions as well. So thank you, Miguel, for joining us today. Thank you, Rudy. I'm going to open up with Miguel so that you could give just a quick background of yourself, Miguel, how you got involved in this, and then we'll allow Rudy to say a couple words, and then I'd like to go straight into what we're here to learn about, which is how the blasting affects our residents and our community.
Sure. Well, I want to thank you for having us over. This, obviously, as you mentioned, it's a very significant issue. It's affecting the entire area, and unfortunately it's been ignored for far too long. As a property owner, and I'm personally affected by this, we could say I got pissed off when I'm losing my property. So using my background, I studied architecture, Florida A&M, as a matter of fact, and I was a general contractor, vice president of a general contracting firm for many years. Using my knowledge and experience, I began to study and investigate what's happening and how it's happening. And that's how we've come today.
Thank you, Miguel.
Yes, thank you again, Christy, for having us this morning on a very important topic, very important issue that affects the entire Northwest Dade area. My name is Rudy Blanco, as Christy mentioned. I'm an attorney in Miami Lakes, specializing in real estate and so many other things. But particularly 2 years ago, I was asked to be the vice chairman of the Blasting Advisory Board. And it's been a very challenge. It's been a very challenging experience. I've seen so many businesses, schools, and individuals and property owners affected by this. And it really has become a very big issue in Miami Lakes. And I know that eventually here in Doral and Kendall and many of the other areas, Miramar, it's becoming a big issue. And we're here to try to solve it. And we're here to try to resolve it one way or another. And I thank Christy again for bringing us this opportunity.
Thank you, Rudy. So, Miguel, tell us a little bit, and I know you brought us some slides to show the real impact and understand. And this is obviously a very complex issue, something we're not going to understand in 30 minutes of this informational session. However, I think it's something we definitely have to start prioritizing in our community. I hear it constantly, but it's a very technical issue, and also there's a lot of forces that protect it, and I think that that's another topic that we need to discuss on the legal side as to what our rights are as residents, as property owners in a community that are having a negative effect. So we'll go right into Miguel's presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, when for our area, well, we're in Miami Lakes, Northwest Dade. I started in 2016, and I began to quantify who is affected, how big is the area affected, and I arbitrarily took a Google map and arbitrarily drew a 4-mile radius circle. And I asked a friend of mine, a realtor, can she give me a count of how many homes in the area within this boundary? And at this point, it was 40,000 homes. So I thought it was a significant number. Maybe not in lines of the entire state, but in our area, I think it's significant. In reality, once I began giving presentations, I was informed that the energy wave is being felt 11 miles away.
Yeah.
So when you affect 11 miles away from one particular mine, there's over 300,000 homes in the hundreds of thousands. Now, include the Doral area is another mine further south than this. Obviously, the area increases. So the operations of a mine, just so we're all on the same page, they explode, they drill into the ground 85 feet deep and explode an area of earth. And in our case, our area is lime rock. The lime rock then collapses into the pit. That water body that you see is 85 feet deep. They then have a machine called a drag line, which scoops up the fallen rock, piles it up, and eventually they have large earth movers that take this rock for processing. And this happens in a spiral formation around the lake, if you will. The area that they're blasting in is called the lake belt. That region is basically on the west side of the turnpike, which when it was defined was considered, we wouldn't grow that far as land developed back in the late 70s. So you'll see if you go down the turnpike, you'll see these gorgeous water bodies. Those were mines. So again, this is an older map, but it shows the locations of the different mining operations along this lake belt region, and this being the turnpike here. So a few years ago, the state sponsored a study by Respect. And one of the significant things in the study was this, they identified different stratas across the state. And this is where things started to get interesting, because in our area, which is this purple area, light purple, we're over the Biscayne Aquifer. Biscayne Aquifer is what we get our drinking water from, and the aquifer, it's a body of water that we're standing on. So the lime rocks is like a sponge where water is actually flowing through the sponge, and we build on top of that. So underneath us, holding us up is the lime rock, but the water's flowing through it. The issue of that is water is incompressible. So when you introduce an energy wave to water, the energy wave travels. It carries that energy wave. So if we throw a rock in a lake, you'll see the ripples go across the lake. It's the same principle. The components, if for those of us that stayed awake during physics, in high school physics, this is the components of an energy wave. We have amplitude, the vibration, a single wavelength, the crest, the trough. Those are all the properties of a wavelength. However, the state is monitoring where the top purple arrow, the direction of wave travel, is how fast this energy wave travels. That's the legal limit. It's called peak particle velocity. The velocity is speed and direction by definition, and that is what the legal measurement is recording. It does not take into account all the other components of an energy wave, and there's the problem. We've also measured and discovered that the energy wave being created to break the rock generates 4 different types of energy waves. These 4 different types of energy wave become a payload to the energy wave we just showed. And what happens is it's widening the area of effectiveness of that sine curve. So I took, just as an example, a typical home in Miami Lakes, and you see that the boundaries of the property line, either side. And as the energy wave travels, we've measured the energy wave to be 3 kilometers long, a single wavelength. So what happens? The energy wave can actually go below the houses or above the houses.
So each one of these is the same house.
It's basically, think of a street, and these are your homes on the street, like a development.
Okay.
So we have complaints that people say, I didn't feel anything. You're crazy. And I'm not crazy. I felt it. How can you crazy? You didn't feel it. And we get these arguments between neighbors. We're getting these stories. And so how is that happening? Well, it's true. The energy wave goes under their homes or goes above their homes and misses their homes altogether. So we have homes here that aren't being affected, and a home here and here that getting hit from below or from above. The damage that you see on your homes, you can see with the direction of the travel of the crack, and it will tell you if the energy wave is hitting you from above or hitting you from below.
Okay.
So when you increase the area by the attached payload, your swath of effective area is greater.
Yeah.
Now remember, the state is only monitoring the direction and speed, not the direction, the speed of the energy wave, the PPV. Now, in addition to the energy wave, the seismic energy wave, the ground, we've also discovered there's an air pressure wave being generated. So as this explosion happens abruptly, the air pressure then goes across the surface of the earth and affects all areas in the area that it's hitting. The air pressure is actually swelling our homes. We've measured it to 0.5 centimeter, and it's very noticeable when you have cathedral trusses, like a vaulted ceiling, that the house is actually expanding. The trusses are moving. So you're getting cracks on your drywall joints. The drywall doesn't move at all. So where the movement will happen is the joint between two drywall panels, and you'll see the cracks there forming.
Right.
So that's very typical in the cathedral ceiling. Now, as I mentioned, it's 4 different types of energy wave that's been recorded: P wave, S wave, Raleigh wave, and Love wave. Each does a specific task to break the rock. And if you watch, this is a video sent to me by a resident.
During one of the blastings?
Yes, this is an actual security camera recording of his home, entry of his home. And you'll see, if you watch the bottom right corner, the energy wave traveling across his tiles and popping the tiles.
Show it again with the mouse. Maybe we can, so for people who are watching, it's right here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So this is called debonding. And the debonding, the vibrations separate different components. So the tile is actually separating from the thin set, from the concrete below. Let me see. So the effects of a structure onto a structure is known. It's actually, this is from a federal study, but federal studies, most of the country is all wood construction. So the federal studies are based on wood primarily. And the sliding, racking, and overturning forces is the same whatever the structure is. How the response is what will vary. So this is a wood structure, but we'll get into this now to see how the response is on reinforced masonry, our construction that we have here. This is a computer model of actual recorded energy and how it's affecting the response, how it affects our structures, reinforced structures. So you'll notice along the bottom.
When you say reinforced structures, concrete.
Concrete, yeah, concrete.
Rebar.
Our homes that we have.
Yeah, the homes we have here in Miami.
Here, right. Based on the Florida Building Code.
Correct.
Florida Building Code is really designed for lateral loading, for hurricanes.
Hurricanes, right.
So when a wind hits the side of your house, it's to resist that force.
Exactly.
It is nothing to resist vibration underground. We have in California, west of the San Andreas Fault. So you will see what's called a tie column, which is a reinforcement within the wall. You'll see these hot spots where it's dark blue in these photographs. It's stressing, which is designed to do that. So that's a good thing. However, the line on the bottom, between what's the dark purple, solid purple, and the breakup of the wall, that's your floor slab line. So from the interior to the exterior, the height of your floor, that is your first location to look for the type of stresses that are being applied. So you start basically look at the corner of the house that's closest to a mine. As this energy wave travels through your structure, it hits that part first, and the house wants to lean back as it's being forced. The force affects it. Then the house wants to reflect backwards as a response. The problem when it does that is your openings become torsioned. Now this is where it gets wild. Your torsioned opening, the square, becomes oblong, and so your corners. One corner will be obtuse, larger than 90 degrees, and the other one will be acute, shorter than 90 degrees. It's not measurable, the torsioning, but it's the reflect of the response of the structure. On the areas that have obtuse, concrete doesn't take expansion, it takes compression. So if it's obtuse, it's stretching the window opening, and you have a crack. So this is that same computer model, a dynamic model, and how the response to a energy wave hitting a reinforced structure.
Now here's the question. So different than an earthquake where you get this once for a constant period of time. This is short, small blasts, but consistently over time. How often are they They're
blasting on average 3 times a week. Sometimes they've started now twice a day on a blast day.
So they're short blasts, but consistently over a long period of time.
Right.
Which is how many years you would say where you actually start to see damages?
You're starting to see damages immediately within 2 years of time. I'll have pictures coming up that the home is 2 years old and has the same damage or similar damage to a 30-year-old home.
Okay.
So as you're saying, the issue is the home is masonry and concrete and steel. it's not organic. It doesn't heal. So once you hit it, and any damage, how slight it is,
It's
that
there.
it takes it, it's there. So when you hit it again, it's now
Right.
compounded damage.
Right.
And that's what we're experiencing. So this home is 2 years old at the time of the photograph, and you could see the hairline crack that, as I was explaining, at the floor slab starting to form. This home is 30 years old at the time of the photograph. That hairline crack has grown. We now have what's called step cracks,
Right.
and that's part of the energy waves that we demonstrated that's creating shear. It creates this type of damage. This is seismic damage. This will not be, with the combination of these type of damages, will not be construction defects as it's being claimed. This is seismic. This house, 2 years old at the time, and you could see the hairline crack being at the window opening. As this window opening, theoretically, this, instead of 90 degrees, becomes obtuse, and the concrete can't take expansion and cracks.
Expansion, right.
Building's 13 years old at the time of the photograph, and we could see the same step cracks at the corner of the building as the energy wave is traveling through here. Same building, the reinforced masonry wall, the actual block lines
Right.
of each block, as the blocks are shifting, they're being stressed. Same damage here, step crack along the floor slab, same damage. This is 3 stories up at the top of the stair tower of an office building, and the issue that is coming about now is that as the energy wave travels and we have the movement, the higher you go up the building, the greater the sway that the building's responding.
Right.
So a 3-story, the stair tower, 3 stories up, is moving more, and you could see each individual block.
Well, that's what, so the reason this all came about when I spoke to Rudy was I recently had a question and answer town hall with Midtown Doral. They're feeling it tremendously. They feel it sometimes twice a week. And it was one of the biggest concerns they had was that they're in these buildings, especially after we saw in Surfside and things like that. They're concerned. They're concerned as what is the long-term impact this will have on their properties being in a building like that. And if that building was made to withstand those constant vibrations.
Yep, the state of Florida follows the Florida Building Code. Florida Building Code was generated in 1988 after Hurricane Andrew. And the state of Florida we do not reside on a tectonic plate, so we don't have earthquakes here.
Correct.
So a seismic movement is not part of the Florida Building Code to take into an account. Lateral loading. Lateral loading is the wind pushing on the wall from a hurricane. That is what the Florida Building Code is based on.
Got it.
So yes, it does affect. Okay. This home has a front porch, and there's a phenomenon called liquefaction. It's kind of like liquid with an I, but this is with an E. And it occurs when you introduce energy into water-saturated soils, that the soil becomes more of a liquid state. When the energy is removed, the soil becomes solid again. It's an amazing phenomenon. And we're seeing it here, we're experiencing it. At a very slow scale, typically happens quickly, like an earthquake or quicksand where something moves fast. This we're having it incrementally. So this column is actually sinking and leaning away from the house. The problem with this house is that the porch roof that we're seeing here, this beam that attaches to the rest of the house, the attachment of the 2 roofs, it begins to separate. As this column sinks, this crack here is witnessed at the connection of the 2 roofs, and water then began to go in
Water
the
damage,
house.
right.
Water damage. Same here. We could see this house has the roof. It's sinking. You could see it, literally the angle that it's taking. They have repaired tiles, thinking it's just a roof tile. Roof tile doesn't provide water protection. Your underlayment does. So many people are getting scammed or advised erroneously and incorrectly to do repairs, and this is not how you repair this. This column is a telltale sign of liquefaction.
So this is what I'm seeing a lot in Doral.
Right.
In islands of Doral, there's a lot of columns like that were done to put up fences and around the communities, and you see them just completely
this is a
tilted.
freestanding column, and it's holding the gate. So the load of the column, the weight that has to carry additional, would be the gate. So it should lean, if it were to lean, if it was built improperly, towards the gate.
Towards the gate, right.
The gate goes to the ground, and it's leaning the opposite direction.
Right.
Big thing that's happened in Miami Lakes, PSN, the Spanish Lakes, the whole area. Again, liquefaction.
pools.
Anything that's underground, liquefaction, pops underground objects out of the ground. So people are seeing their pool decks crack and damage and whatnot and thinking that their deck is settling. It's not. The pool's coming out of the ground. And as it comes out of the ground, all the attachments to it, the plumbing, electrical, gas lines in some cases, they're breaking the water pipes. So you can see here, this part of the deck has actually has moved. The pool has lifted and is pulling this part of the deck with it. This particular owner, I have asked her to document it, and she has religiously. So we can see the progression of the damage of her own house. The other problem that we have that people don't realize, and us as everybody, as taxpayers, as property owners, we pay for infrastructure.
Right.
The tax pays the city. Well, this particular location, the manholes are coming out of the ground. This area floods within 10 minutes of any simple rainfall because the water does not flow properly from one
to the drain.
To the drain.
Right.
So you can see everything either sinking or lifting. Now, what's the significance of this? People are living in fear, and rightly so. This obviously is the collapse of Surfside. There was part of the component of the catastrophe of Surfside was proven to be the pile driving of the adjacent building. Now, there's a thing called debonding. Debonding, and we've all seen it when we drive by a demolition site, where you'll see a pile of rebar stacked on the side. Well, that rebar had concrete in it. How they break the concrete from the steel is with a jackhammer.
Right.
The jackhammer, what's doing is introducing energy into the concrete.
Right, to break up
and it breaks the
mass.
concrete. Right. What you have left is the steel, but it's no longer bonded. It's no longer glued to the concrete. This is what happened at Surfside. So what we're seeing here is the rebar literally stripped out from the floor slab. This is the parking garage, the parking deck, and the entire deck slid down the column and is now crushing the cars below. This was witnessed. On the other side of the building, you could see that the reinforcement was stripped from the slabs of each floor. The rebars are hanging. So the bonding of the steel. Now, how is that significant to our area? This particular apartment building, this is off Miami Gardens. There were many components to a failure of a building, but one of the components of this building that we could see the rebars being exposed. So this is called spalling. Now, what's significant is, why is it at the end of a balcony and not anywhere else in the balcony? This building is in the area that's suffering the damages from the energy wave, from the blasting. As the energy wave travels through a building, the hardest or strongest connection between the balcony and the building is the highest force, because that's where the connection is. The end of the balcony takes the most movement. So as this balcony vibrates, where it's fixed is at the connection. The vibration, most movement, is at its end. So it's no coincidence that the spalling is happening at the end. This is a standard. If we study structures in school, the forces that apply to the balcony, as I explained.
Let's explain this, because when I saw this image the first time, I didn't understand it. So if I could this right here, which is this corner right here, that is the connection of the balcony to the building.
Exactly.
And this over here would be the end of the balcony.
Correct.
Which is where you're feeling the most vibration.
Correct. The most movement happens.
The most movement happens.
Right. And concrete doesn't take movement.
Right.
Steel does. The reinforcement does. So we have the steel remains, but the concrete falls apart. This literally is the privacy wall just north, immediately north, the next property of that apartment building. And we could see the seismic damage as before, the step cracks, the cracks along the slab. The privacy walls are more susceptible because they have a smaller footing.
Right.
They're not supporting anything. They don't need a larger footing. This is planning and zoning building of Hialeah Gardens. And this, you could go to Google Earth, that's where this image came from, and zoom in, and you could see the crack happening. We measured this, it's about 3 years ago, and we measured the crack, we documented it. We actually inserted a ruler into the crack and we knocked on the drywall. The damage is the entire building. They've recently demolished the entire building. They leveled it now. It's unsafe. This is from a school in West Dade. A teacher sent me this, that after a blast, and it's a gorgeous high-end school, if you will, and a newer school, and the damage happened after an energy wave passed. So the kids are scared, and some kids, quote unquote, they said they're used to living in this environment. I say that's not acceptable. Now, what's happening? The state has sponsored a study, or has created a new thing called the Miami-Dade Pilot Program, and they are studying and collecting data of the energy wave. So this is it's a screenshot of the beta map that's being populated. The website should be live soon, but you will notice these yellow triangles. Yellow triangles are monitoring equipment, devices, and they've been installed throughout the county. This isn't just around at this location, the entire county. The blue dots are citizen complaints. So what we all need is for the citizens, if you could pass out the information and links to the complaint site,
Yep.
So that the citizens can provide a testimonial complaint. And what will happen is when you will pick the dot of a location of a complaint, it will dynamically link you to a particular blast, where it was located, and all the information that linked to that blast. What the state needs is testimony. So when you file your complaint, there's a section that you can put your message in. What exactly did you feel? Not, this is the end of the world, oh my God, my shelf fell off the window, my window broke, my shelf fell off the wall.
Right.
This type of testimony is what's needed, so they can substantiate that it's true. They've received so many complaints thus far, for over 1,400 complaints from this website this year, that their investigation it warranted this type of study. Now, what hasn't happened yet, which is eventually will come, is the analysis of this data. But this is the first step to find a common ground to get a solution to coexist with the miners.
Yeah. So tell me very quickly, because this only shows a portion of the map. There's several quarries.
Correct.
Currently active.
Correct. Five locations.
To the west of the turnpike.
Correct.
Which affect all this northwest Dade area.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for that information. I'm going to wrap some of that up. I'm going to give Rudy a couple minutes to talk about the legal side of this. And then I want to talk a little bit about a solution, because we don't want to scare everybody to that your house is going to fall. That's not necessarily the case. This is an opportunity to look at what are the situations we're facing, what are the results of this constant issue without addressing it and finding a solution that we can all coexist.
Correct. On the legal side, as Miguel was pointing, and as you see from Christi's message and so forth, you see that we have many players involved. So it is a complex issue. It's not a one-person fault or situation. So it's a little bit of a complex. We have many players involved. We have many industries involved. But we have homeowners involved, businesses, schools, municipalities. You have the miners. We have the industry of the rock mining and line rock blasting and so forth. So you have a lot of players. The state's involved, the county's involved. So through time, this has gone through different areas, different focuses. The laws have changed frequently, back and forth. So it's one of the key things that we were asked as part of the Blasting Advisory Board was to find a solution, as eventually we'll get to, and as Christi was trying to point out. And one of the main things is we've gone to Tallahassee and try to change the law, or try to see how we could moderate or ameliorate the effects that we're having on our citizens. And we've had our state representatives working very well, hand in hand with us. This past legislation, this past year, we've introduced different bills and different laws. We've gone to Tallahassee lobbying for this situation too. So we're trying to find an amicable way of trying to live together, as we say, coexist with them. In the areas of compensation and so forth, it's a bit complex because you have so many people that are injured. Some people have not been injured and they're in the same area. So it's something that we're studying. It's something that we're reviewing with the town of Miami Lakes and eventually with other towns and cities in the municipality. And it's complex. I know that there's frustrations in many people. Their lives have been affected one way or another, and businesses have been affected, children are being affected. So we have a lot of issues, a lot of people involved. We have no intentions of putting anybody out of business, as they might claim, as the miners might claim. We just want to coexist with them, and that we could have a viable coexistence with each of the industries. So it's a complex issue, and we're working on that too.
For me, I'll tell you, it's a life and safety issue, right? Making sure long term. It's an investment, protecting infrastructure in our community, which at the end of the day, we're all invested in. So that's why, to me, it's become a much more prominent concern and priority. Again, I don't think that the city has given it its priority. I will tell you, I served 8 years on the city council. I heard it constantly, but we were never very, very well informed as to what was the real effects of this. I knew and I understood a little bit about it, but I really started to learn more and get involved and understand that there is a way to coexist and we need to be able to get there. So this is a sample of what Miami Lakes has been doing as far as the complaints, and we will, with this video, put the link to the complaints so that people here in Doral can start putting in their complaints as well. And we can start taking record of this. And my commitment to our residents, moving forward, hopefully in this new role I will take on if elected on December 13th as mayor, is to make this a priority as Miami Lakes has done, work with the town of Miami Lakes, because I think united we will have a stronger front in working with Tallahassee. And again, as Rudy has stated, the purpose is not to put an industry out of business, rather find a way to coexist and understand that if elected officials are going to make decisions to expand our ability to build and grow as a community, then we need to find solutions to make sure that we are coexisting in an inhabitable way, in a way that's safe for our residents, and also protecting the investments that we make in our community. So I look forward to continuing to have more discussions about this, to finding those solutions and working together with gentlemen like yourselves that have and you guys have no financial stake in any of this other than your
my losses.
Yeah, you're an actual resident in the area that's affected, a business owner.
Same
Rudy, yeah, same. Myself as well. So I think it's more about just being good public servants and finding an opportunity for all of us to work together. So we'll make sure to include these links so that those who are watching us can find more information and also file their complaints. Miguel, any last information words? This won't be the last that we get together and talk about this. Again, towards the future, as I hopefully take on this new role, we will have a lot more to discuss and look forward to. Either way, as a citizen, I plan to stay very involved in this issue. Miguel, any last words?
Above all, I wanted to thank you bringing shedding light to this. It is a preventable issue, if you will. And it's a matter of proper regulating the industry, and we can coexist. It's not a problem. Our structures, they're not designed for this. However, it's not a matter of gloom and doom that your building is going to fall. That is not the case.
Right.
And if it is a seriously damaged building, it can be corrected and fixed. So if addressed properly in that time, which is where we need to be.
Right. It's facing the issue. It's what's it called? It's
being proactive.
Yeah, being proactive, but recognizing that this is a concern and being proactive and finding the right solutions for it. So absolutely, I think that that's a great way to look at it, and we look forward to continuing to do that with you all and bringing you all closer into this community to work together with all the West Dade area. Rudy, any final words?
Yes, thank you again, Christi, for giving us this chance and this opportunity. My main advice or my main plea is get involved. As citizens, we have a right to be involved. We have a right to voice our opinions, voice our concerns. It's our properties. We've invested highly in them. Our property values, as you know, skyrocketing in town. And if they're affecting you one way or another, get involved. Talk to your local officials. Talk to your representatives. Make it an issue, particularly if you're being felt, if you're feeling the vibrations, and if you're being affected one way or another, the issue is really get involved and get informed.
Yes, thank you very much, Rudy. And as many of the topics that we've discussed, and this is obviously, and I'll say it just because I know many may say this is a campaign time, and so this is not an issue that was brought forward just by campaign. There's actually a coincidence, right, Rudy? You were there when this happened, where I've been talking about this for a long time, and just particularly in the last couple of months, I've had lots of people contact me and say, what are you going to do about the blasting? I'm like, I know that this has been an issue, but I hadn't realized how much of an issue it really is in our area.
And we brought it up because it's one of the things that
And
Lakes wants to share with other
Yeah.
municipalities
Right.
the same concern.
Right. And
So
not
it was
only
the appropriate time.
Absolutely. And not only has it been just recently, I think the blasting has gotten a little bit more aggressive recently. And so that's why it's become more of an issue. And so Rudy and I were introduced for a whole other issue. And we started to talk about the blasting somehow. I said, you know what, this is an issue that I know many of our residents care about, and I want to get more informed about and be knowledgeable about. And that's how we ended up here. I said, you know what, this is a great opportunity to start that conversation. And so, it's never the wrong time to start something. There's always an opportunity to improve, and I don't believe in waiting when we can improve and inform our community.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. Thank you if you stayed tuned this entire time. We appreciate it.
Yes.
We know that this is a subject that may not be as interesting or energetic, but it's something that is very important to our community. I know many of you are concerned about it. We are as well. And we want to make sure that you know that I fully am committed to making sure that our quality of life here in Doral continues to be the best for our families. So these are the issues that we will focus on during this campaign and as your next mayor in Doral, the issues that concern and put the interests of residents first always. Thank you for joining us today, and stay tuned for many other important and informational videos that we will have for you coming soon.